Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Folks, this is an important show. We're going to talk about that everybody saw, that old article about, what is it about? That article where they pretty much destroyed the president as far as stating he's not really the president. He is the president in name only. A lot of progressives were happy to see that letter to show this incompetent president and all these other issues. But I have something to tell you guys. That is something very dangerous that's happening in the White House, and it should actually give us pause. I mean, it should give us more than pause. It should make us wonder exactly what's going on. Folks, if you're just joining us, please remember the first thing that I ask you to do anytime you come to the show is please go ahead and share these programs. That is how we're going to get the progressive message out. That is how we're going to get the real message out, because do remember that if you're a listener of ABC, CBS, NBC, CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, all these other guys, these guys are owed to their advertisers. We are only owed to you, which means we only owe you the dedicated, unadulterated truth, and that's what you get when you are a member of Politics Done Right, when you listen to Politics Done Right. So what we ask you, folks, please share the program on your timeline, share the program on your wall, share the program on your Facebook page. If you're listening on Blog Talk Radio Pacifica, please remember to tweet this program out, and also just jump onto the network and add it to your wall page, Tumblr, all these other things as well, because we have to be, anybody who listened to the news earlier today realized that President Obama came out for the first time in a very long time to do a real speech, over an hour long. And in that speech, he reiterated something that we have to tell ourselves. We are not going to be waiting on a savior. You are not going to be a savior for the rest of us. I'm not going to be a savior for anybody. Working together is what it's going to take. And working together means a whole lot. Working together means taking responsibility to ensure that what we're doing is people are listening to what we're doing. Taking responsibility is making sure that you share this program and other programs like this. Because what we have to do is we have to fill the space. There's a whole lot of internet out there. If we don't fill the space with our point of view as well, the other points of view get preponderance. And if the other points of view get preponderance and it's not shared along these types of program in the internet space, guess what happens? Most people see the things that are not in their best interest, because they have people in Russia that are putting out all that type of information. They have people all over the world that are spamming people's Facebook and everything else. Unless you are a part of the movement that goes out and put progressive media out there, like Politics Done Right, The Majority Report, TYT, the Young Turks, all these people that are putting out positive, progressive message on how we move forward. If we are not out there filling the space, not only Facebook, not only Tumblr, not only Twitter, not only Instagram, but if we are not out there populating all these parts of the internet with our point of view as well, and you know our point of view is the point of view, given that it is the research, it is the real point of view, the truth that's all we tell. So we are dependent on you to share the message, our message, your message. That is how we are going to move forward. Absent that, folks, we don't. Anyhow, today's program is going to be, like I told you, about New York Times article. And I am very concerned that many people are looking at that as something great. That is something great that has happened. In other words, well, guess what? We have confirmation that Donald Trump is really an incompetent president and that he's really not running the White House. But folks, is that something did we really learn anything from that? I don't think so. So what I want us to start doing now is we have to be not reactive to what somebody else is saying. We have to be proactive. We have to be the ones saying, we have to be the ones out there putting the message out. We no longer need any more information as far as how bad Trump is. We don't need that. We don't need any more information as far as, well, Trump is not real in the doing the White House. We don't need any more information telling us how bad he is. Everybody knows that. Even those who voted for him, they know that. What we have to do is be ready to provide what, if you elect progressives in Congress, what are you going to do? If you go out there and you're going to start asking voters we got to get Trump out of there, what these voters need to know, why should I spend my time once again to go out there and vote when I really don't see an upside and I'm going to have to pay for daycare or I'm going to have to take an hour or two off from my job? Why? We have to ensure that they know we have a new crop of candidates running. Not only do we have a new crop of candidates running, we have an effective crop of progressives running. Folks who are going to make the types of changes that are required to make, we all talk about make America great again. I'm not even going to say it, to make America work for all of us. I mean, that doesn't sound as potent or strict as that. So, folks, if you're just joining us, it is essential that you share the program. We have to fill the space with progressive info. Please, if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it for us. And if you're thinking that there's some liberal media out there, there's not. We don't have a liberal media, and for all of those who thought MSNBC was liberal, MSNBC is just another corporate-driven media outlet that has to be careful with what they say. They have to be careful that they don't offend anybody indirectly responsible with their advertising. Anyhow, Senior White House, title of the program today, Senior White House official who wrote the New York Times op-ed is no hero. Subtitle: Many hail the senior Trump official who wrote the New York Times op-ed as some type of hero. They are not. These unelected officials are managing the president to continue the loot uninterrupted. Again, what did I say? To continue the loot uninterrupted. That is what they're doing. Continuing the loot uninterrupted. Anyhow, this week's new distraction was an op-ed purportedly written by a senior administration official that disparaged the president. It told us nothing most could not independently infer. The op-ed writer attempted to come across as someone among many in the administration who are saving the country from an erratic, undemocratic, anti-trade, anti-free press president. In fact, these people are no heroes. They are unelected officials conducting the country's business while attempting to manage a rather intellectually incompetent president who knows little about the world, let alone governing. To put it bluntly, these people are more dangerous than Trump, as they are operating absolutely without any real mandate. So, folks, that is the show today. And I wrote the blog of the week in Starbucks this morning. And it took a few words from Juan Coles as well, which is a very solid journalist that he had the same thought process that I had when this came about. Now, before I get into the blog of the week, though, it seems like I have a caller online. If you want to speak, caller that's online, please go ahead and hit the number 1, because that's how we know you're not just listening, but that you want to also speak. So if you want to speak, caller on the line, hit the number 1. And what I'll do is, before I get to the blog of the week, because I've already told you what the concepts are, I just want to tell you, today President Obama was direct at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, where he really admonished Trump, his administration, and the Republican Party as a whole. It is something many have been waiting for a long time now. He did not disappoint. Listening to a president who can speak is so refreshing after having to listen to Trump, somebody who has problems simply articulating a grammatically correct sentence. So it was wonderful seeing somebody who was once a leader of this country, who we could actually understand, who could be coherently understood. Anyhow, I'm going to come and go to the caller, and then I'll go to the blog of the week. Okay, caller, you are on. You are hot. What's your name?
Yes, my name is Ebby Jones, and I'm calling in response to the comments about the op-ed article.
Thank you. Go ahead.
They are not a hero. I completely agree. I think it's the cowardly Republican partisan way. They are so dogmatic in their views. This country is going to hell in a handbasket with all of, and I hate to be that conspiracy theorist type person, but with all of the integrity issues, with all of the lies, with all of the fraud, we're sitting back, and it's almost as if they just don't want to be wrong, that we mucked up really bad by electing this buffoon into office. And each day I'm more depressed and more embarrassed when my colleagues in China ask what's going on in that country, because I simply don't know. It's a circus show.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that you said that I can argue with. And I think what we have to be careful of is there's one thing you said that I want to I want to push back on. Don't feel depressed. I know it's easier said than done. Do not feel depressed and do not feel embarrassed. The Trump is not a reflection on you. Remember that. We all have to remember that. What I think we need to go out there and do now is not only vote ourselves, because judging from listening to you, you are probably an active voter, somebody that has always been politically active. The problem in our country is more than half of this country, and I say this, more than half of this country. I know they talk about the last election, you had, I don't know, 50-something% of the people who participated, who voted. But if you count the amount of people that are not registered, the amount of people that are simply apolitical, and as we know, politics affect them all, they are simply not engaged. As a knowledgeable person that you are, as a knowledgeable person that we all are who listen to this show and who participate in this dialogue, I think it is now our responsibility to encourage, not preach, but encourage our brethren, encourage our neighbors, encourage our brothers and sisters, our extended family, our friends. Look, this is imperative. This is the reason you have to vote. And earlier on, I don't know if you read at my blog, I have the 5 things that you have to be ready to tell these folks on the line. In other words, there are 5 things that you have to tell them why it is that you have to vote and why it is that you have to go vote in a progressive manner. And once you have those, from school to from school to taxes to making sure you have health care for all and all of this, you have it on your tongue. You're ready to tell them, because you know what? If we can talk to these person on a personal level, things that affect them personally, not some abstract thing that a lot of times we make the mistake and do, but talk to them, talk to their passions. I live in Kingwood, Texas. I talk to mostly very conservative people who voted for Donald Trump. And you would be surprised at the dialogue that we have, the commonality that we get into. And not only that, the respect that, because of the approach we take, some of them simply come out and say, you know what, I will never be a Democrat, but I want to be a patriot, and this is what I'm going to do the next election. And I've had a whole lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, that's refreshing to hear. I'll be out door knocking on Saturday, promoting Beto and his campaign.
There you go.
I think people don't realize how it's our municipal, it's our senator, it's the Congress. They don't realize how.
Right.
And when you don't know the influence and the impact, like you said, all the way from the education system to the railroad commissioner, you ask me to vote for what color bus, and I'm going to vote because it matters. And I don't think that people realize the trickle-down effect. And, one more thing I want to say is, where does everybody stand? Or I haven't heard much in the news about the farmers' bailout. This is the party of, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
What these farmers need want is no different than the quote unquote hyperbolic Shaniqua in the hood that just wants a fair opportunity to provide for their family. So they provided this welfare for the farmers, and it just seems like it's been swept under the rug, or they talked about it. Where does that stand? I haven't heard much more about it.
I am
had an opportunity.
You are such a smart woman, and I have to write about that. I mean, and that narrative that you just gave there, I am going to cut that out of this show and put it exactly and put a blog around it. That was the perfect narrative. What was your name again?
Eddie Jones.
Ebby, let me tell you something. That was a perfect narrative, because we speak a whole lot about how the narrative changes the way people think. That farmer, because of externalities, he required a welfare check because of externalities. But
absolutely. Nobody
puts it that way when it comes to farmers. But when it comes to the inner city kids, when it comes to kids in Appalachia, well, we don't even, if you notice, they don't talk about the kids in Appalachia, because they want those people in need. They want those people who live a difficult life to have a certain hue. So you won't see much about Appalachia, but you will see about the ghettos and the barrios.
Absolutely.
But look, it's great talking to you.
Absolutely.
I'll put your mic on. Do you have anything else to say real quickly before I put your mic on hold? And you can stay on the line if you want, and or watch wherever you want.
No, I'll stay on the line. I just appreciate all you do, and I hope to bump into you in Starbucks in Kingwood one day.
Well, you know, that's where I live. So I mean, if you walk in there, you're likely to see me. But anyhow, let's get to the blog of the week, folks. Do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, folks, here we go. Title of the blog post: They are not saving the nation, they are looting it. Disregard the op-ed. And here it goes. Does the person who wrote the op-ed titled, "I am part of the resistance inside Trump administration," denouncing the president and claiming they are saving the country from Trump's worst instinct, worthy of praise? Absolutely not, and here is why. I dissected the op-ed in my blog post titled, "A Mole in the White House Came Out to the New York Times." Republicans from day one knew that President Trump was a clear and present danger. The op-ed is just a false attempt of atonement. But the entire Republican Party establishment and its supporting organizations are complicit. Senator Bob Corker, Republican of Tennessee, statement, while truthful, tells a remarkable story. And here it goes. I am not a fan of anonymous op-eds, but I don't think those of us who have worked closely with the people in the White House are surprised by the content. Corker, a Republican who shares long-running beef with Trump, said in a statement on Thursday. Later that afternoon, amid the search within the White House for the anonymous op-ed author, Corker told CNN he believed any number of staffers could have written it. But here's a kicker, what he says. I think the biggest issue they are going to have is figuring out who would not have written a letter like that, Corker said. Think about that. He thinks the biggest problem is going to be they're going to have a problem figuring in this administration who is it that possibly would not have written an op-ed like that, inferring, well, let's continue. Corker is fessing up to the open secret that everyone knows. The White House is a joke. The White House is a complete joke. Most importantly, they allowed it to continue without hearing or oversight for one and only one reason. While Trump distracts us all, they loot the country with the tax cuts, deregulations, and unfair laws. I mean, we don't have to infer that. Guess what? The op-ed written by one of the guys in the White House or in the administration said as much. This is what he said in the op-ed. In addition to his mass marketing of the notion that the press is the enemy of the people, President Trump's impulses are generally anti-trade and anti-democratic. Don't get me wrong. There are bright spots that the near ceaseless negative coverage of the administration fails to capture. And here's what he's so proud of. Effective deregulation, historic tax reform, a more robust military, and more. But these successes have come despite, not because of, the president's leadership style, which is impetuous, adversarial, petty, and ineffective. All of this is what this guy's written in the op-ed. Continuing is writing. From the White House to executive branch department and agencies, senior officials will privately admit their daily disbelief at the commander-in-chief's comments and actions. Most are working to insulate their operations from his whims. Meetings with him veer off topic and off the rails. He engages in repetitive rants, and his impulsiveness results in half-baked, ill-informed, and occasionally reckless decisions that have to be walked back. Continuing, this is from the op-ed. There is literally no telling whether he might change his mind from one minute to the next. A top official explained to me recently, exasperated by an Oval Office meeting at which the president flip-flopped on a major policy decision he'd made only a week earlier. The erratic behavior would be more concerning if it weren't for unsung heroes in and around the White House. Wow. Let me repeat that. The erratic behavior would be more concerning if it weren't for unsung heroes in and around the White House. Some of his aides have been cast as villains by the media, but in private, they have gone to great lengths to keep bad decisions contained to the West Wing, though they are clearly not always successful. Close quote. Before I continue, because that to me was one of the most upsetting statements of the op-ed. Who voted for these people? For them to look, if they think, first of all, the president was elected, yes, by a minority of the population, but based on the rules of the flaws in our Constitution, I call the Electoral College a flaw. Maybe it made sense then. I've heard a whole lot of different points of view. I think it's an undemocratic flaw. People like to say, well, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. I don't really give a rat's about that. You know, the reality is it is undemocratic. It gives small states with a whole lot of land more power, and it implicitly did what the founders of the Constitution had intended in the first place, and that is big land. Or the more land you own, the more value you really had as within the government. Remember that the only people who could vote in the past were land-owning white men, which meant only 5% of the population or so, when the Constitution was written by these great guys, could vote. So, let's always put in context that these guys created a wonderful document that worked for a few, but that we ensured it got extrapolated because of the genius in the Constitution of something called the elastic clause, and that being the amendment process of the Constitution, which allowed us to get progressive with a document that originally was not. But that said, who gave these guys, who gave these unelected White House officials the job to say, well, the American people elected somebody. He has proven to be what most Americans thought he would be, an incompetent person who knows nothing in office. And instead, whenever he gives orders that make no sense, we will simply disobey them. And if we disobey them, and if we don't like them, we just won't affect it. And what we would affect are the laws that we want, or the policies that we want. That is not a democracy, folks. That is having a figurehead, Donald Trump, and all the bad folk around him, all the folks that want to pollute your land, all the folks that want to deregulate everything, because he doesn't understand what deregulation really is either. He doesn't understand these concepts. You listen to him talk, it is clear that Donald Trump does not understand governing. He does not understand laws. He's a shyster, I can sell a piece of oil. I can sell a piece of this. Look, there are people selling things all over the world that are very successful, made a hell of a lot more money than I made developing software because they could sell stuff. That doesn't make them presidential material, and that is what we got ourselves. So that is the thing that concerned me the most when I read that piece. And they say, well, when he gets too erratic, we simply change whatever it is that he's saying, or we simply don't affect it. That's not a democracy. In fact, I wonder, and that a lawyer needs to go through that, if that is even legal. Because if the executive gives an order and you do something else, under what command, under what authority are you doing that? I don't know. Anyway, continuing with the blog of the week. Sorry for the rant, but that was really upsetting, and it should be very upsetting to you as well. In effect, they are admitting the country is run by unelected subjects of the president who do not get their marching orders from him, an erratic, flip-flopping, anti-democratic president. Journalist Juan Cole, I love Juan Cole's, he writes very insightful articles. Journalist Juan Cole's article Trump's enablers boast of saving nation, but reveal they're looting the nation, says it best. And I must admit, before I changed my title to include the word looting, because my original title had pilfering. My spell checker said, "Oh, that's a difficult word. Try stealing." I don't want stealing. Then I read Juan Cole's article and he said looting, and I said, "Aha! I'll steal Juan Cole's word, looting." Here we go. Journalist Juan Cole's article, "Trump's enablers boast of saving nation but reveal they're looting the nation," says it best. That quote tells you everything you need to know. This author supported this quote. This is Juan Cole's words now. That quote tells you everything you have to know. This author supported the tax scam passed by the GOP last February, which cut government services for most people and gave the super wealthy a huge and wholly undeserved tax cut. The author supports deregulation of a sort that has gutted the environment regulations that had reduced poisons in our air, soil, and water. This regime is literally trying to poison babies. This guy thinks that is great. Again, this is an unelected official taking it into his own hands. What they are going to say is good about the Trump administration that they effected. Trump raised the U.S. war budget to $700 billion, even though the U.S. has no paired enemy. We spend as much on our military as the next 14 countries combined. Let me stop there and do a plug for my book. I went through that in detail in this book here. As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. I didn't only talk about the military-industrial complex, but the health-industrial complex and all these other complexes that are screwing with us, a patent system that prevents innovation. They talk about, oh, if we go to Medicare for all, there's going to be no innovation. It's not things like Medicare for all that screws with innovation. It's things like the patent laws that allows people to hold on to something that they, in fact, haven't even discovered. Drug companies that hold patents for over 17 years for drugs that were developed by whom? You. You paid the taxes that develop a whole lot of these drugs, and guess what? They are charging you again. They charge you to develop the drugs. Then when they go ahead and the college or university moves that thing over, guess what happens after that, my dear friends? A private company takes that patent from the university and starts to develop the drug that was developed by the university, paid for by you. They say they do a little bit of testing. Okay, they do a little bit of testing. And for that, they charge orders of magnitude over the cost of the product, including what the research costs. And then they bill you. And then we pay it two other ways, right? We pay it when you pay your insurance premium, and we pay it when Medicare and Medicaid has to pay it, which means you're paying it again. So all this money travels to these big corporations, and then they say, oh, well, we had to do all these research or whatever. Check the books. Ask why they are the most profitable corporations on the planet. Because they're taking your money. They're taking your money. They invest little in research. We do. The NIH does. And they take your money. And we accept that. So one of the things I tell people one of the reasons I say, let's share these shows and make sure people understand these issues, right? Because if you're listening to TV, most people think drug companies invest a whole lot in research and development and testing these drugs. That just isn't the case. In the book that I wrote, and again, let me just show you the book. Little plug here. We somehow have to be able to keep politics done right on air. Now, let me, as I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. Let me tell you something, folks. I explained it quite well in there because it's the patent system screwed you. Farmers now have to buy seeds that they once could replenish from their own crop. Now they're convinced to use seeds put out by Monsanto or other agribusinesses so that every single year they have to go get seeds to plant. They have to purchase those seeds as opposed to just keeping some extra seeds from their own garden, from their own fields. And here's what happened. There was a farmer. He decided, and I'm digressing off topic for a bit here, but this is an important thing here. I want you to see how corrupt the system is. There's a farmer, and I explained this one in the book very well as well. There's a farmer. he planted his own sort of kernel corn or whatever it was that he planted. The field next to him was purchasing seeds. The pollen from that other field fertilized the corn in his field. And what that meant is suddenly his corn was a hybrid of the Monsanto corn. All right? So now, Monsanto goes around the fields of this country. I think it's Monsanto or whatever it is, the agribusiness is. Goes around this country checking everybody's fields, right? And they may take a piece of corn and take it to the lab and see if it has their genes in it. And if it has their genes in it, guess what they do? They sue the farmer for having not purchased their seeds. And guess what? The farmer has lost in court. They come and women have breast cancer, right? They decided to patent a gene that prevents others from being able to do these tests on breast cancer cheaply. So now if one person owns a patent that checks a particular gene and nobody else can do it, they have a monopoly and they can charge you those exorbitant fees. That went back to court and they won. The people won in, I think, Australia. I am not sure if what this current state is in the United States right now. But these are not exceptions. These are things that happen. These are things that prevent innovation. It isn't that Medicare for all is going to prevent innovation in medicine. It isn't that having a good social safety net is going to stop innovation. What stops innovation is our policies that create a corporate welfare state. Anybody telling you about welfare for people? Welfare for people are peanuts. Peanuts compared to corporate welfare. It's peanuts. Sorry for the digression. Let me continue with what my brother Cole had to say. Trump, let's start from the military again. Trump raised the U.S. war budget to $700 billion, even though the U.S. has no peer enemy. We spend as much on our military as the next 14 countries combined. Altogether, the U.S. probably spends $1 trillion a year on military-related expenses. Military spending creates few jobs, and about half of that money is given out to private contracting firms. You hear that? It's a transfer of your tax dollars to military companies claiming to do something for a non-existent problem. We do not have to have a military the size that we have, nor do we have to invest into the hardware of the military. We could be employing a whole lot more people, downsizing the military budget and throwing that directly into fixing all our bridges, streets, airports. That will generate a ton of jobs. Much more than you can with a military infrastructure, which is a lot more specialized than just building a bridge or just asphalting roads throughout the country. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of miles of roads that need to be asphalted again. Military spending creates few jobs, and about half of that money is given out to private contracting firms. So that is a welfare for the rich, says one Cole. The money could have gone to student debt relief or rebuilding Puerto Rico. And this guy thinks that the bloated military budget is an accomplishment. I got to say something because Juan brought it up, but he didn't expand on it. You want to see an explosion in this economy? Take the chains of student loan off of our millennials and some of our Gen Xers. Take the chains of those debts that mostly were created because many of the folks previous to the millennials decided they didn't want to pay a little bit more in taxes to make sure the prices of education didn't get ridiculously high, while most of that tax cut that they voted for because, they don't want to pay their taxes, they didn't get most of it. Most of it went to the wealthy. And in effect, they got none of it because it turns out that those who wanted to help their kids, because their tax rate went down, they had to give more money to their kids. And that was more money than the taxes in the first place. We have to start thinking logically. We have to start thinking one step beyond our nose, knows this, we have to start, and that is why we have programs like this. There are a lot of things that are not immediately evident, right? And we can't blame folks for that because they're not informed. And if they're not informed, how can we blame? Who is going to be a news junkie nerd like me that's going to sit down and try to read and figure out all this stuff and then try to put it into a form that, okay, you don't have to spend all the time that somebody like myself or guys from Majority Report or all these guys spend reading all this crap. We can distill it so that you can hear it, go off and do your job. Just know that it's there. Do you have confidence in the stuff that we put out? If you have confidence in politics done right, if you have confidence in the Majority Report, if you have confidence in the Young Turks, if you have confidence in these other news outlets, independent news outlet, you can know that, okay, I'll leave it to Egberto to do some research. I'll leave it to Juan to do some research. I'd leave it to these other folks to go ahead and do some research. But just so that I can be informed, because that is what we need. We need an informed populace. An informed populace would vote correctly. The problem is our populace isn't very well informed, and that is the fault of a media who's owned by the plutocracy, by the corporatocracy, by those who put ads on their stations, by those who keep them alive. So, folks, that is why I've always asked, share and support and subscribe. I always ask that because, folks, we are the last stance before. And, I say this all the time, right? A lot of times in America, people believe, well, we cannot ever become Nicaragua. We can never become Venezuela. We can never become all these things. Look, right now, Trump had been successful in making the other scapegoats. He made the other scapegoat or scapegoats, right? He looked at people that are suffering. A lot of people who voted for Trump, they're genuinely suffering. He made them fear people that look like me or differently. He made those people fear them. There's this history has persistence. And it's for those of us who understand that, who don't take offense to, and that's the reason I am the way I am, right? You don't take offense to the racists. I tell people all of the time that I have a hell of a lot of friends, and a hell of a lot of them are racist. And they're my friends. But how can you do that? What are you? An Uncle Tom? No. I am somebody who wants to make change. And you don't make change with the people that already have everything, know everything the way it should be. You make a change by talking to folks and working with folks and breaking bread with folks that don't think like you or can't see things because they've been misinformed from the Trumps of the world. And you know what? When people see that you make that effort to talk to them, the walls fall. When I'm talking to folks out there, I actually see when the wall falls. They start to see you as an abstract, just a fountain of, wow, communication. If we could get more people there, but let me. I keep digressing, but that's how I do things here. Anyway, let me continue with the blog of the week. The conclusion is that more corrupt sections of the ruling U.S. business classes, this is Ron Cole still speaking. The conclusion is that the more corrupt sections of the ruling U.S. businesses classes are perfectly willing to use Trump to achieve their libertarian paradise of no taxes on the rich and their Praetorian paradise of a military potlatch. He used the word I didn't quite understand then. The dictionary redefines it this way. Among North American Indians peoples of the Northwest Coast, an opulent ceremonial feast at which possessions are given away or destroyed to display wealth or enhance prestige. While they are, Juan Cole still talking, while they are taking steps to reinforce inequality, harm our health, and increase instability, they are mildly worried about the erratic behavior of the big orange man who brought them to Washington. They are managing and manipulating the idiot president and achieving their fondest goals of looting the country. End quote from Juan Cole. Folks, more than ever, absolutely more than ever, the November elections continue to take on new meaning. The looting is in full vogue. Reversing will be difficult, but we must start on November 6th, 2018. And that's the end of the blog of the week. Folks, telephone number 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Folks, I want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts. But let me tell you a little something about my Sunday essay, Sunday article for Daily Kos. I digressed a bit while I was talking about the blog of the week, where I said we need to talk to the Trumpist. So I wrote an article, and this is what I felt this week, right? I didn't feel like doing a lot of research on some new subject or whatever, because I wanted to go beyond just technicalities, facts, and all that kind of stuff, right? So I wrote my piece for, let me see if I can pull what the title is. I want to make sure I get the title right, and then tell you that for Daily Kos on Sunday, the piece that I wrote is actually titled, and I need to get to my, how do I find it again? How do I find, something? Sometimes I wonder, it's like, I need to go ahead and get to the full site. There we go. But yeah, I speak a whole lot about talking to others in this article for Daily Kos. And the title that I gave that article was, come on up. Don't want to lie to my audience. The title of it was, or is, If This Former Homophobe Could Change, So Can a Racist Trumpist, right? And the reason I included myself in that article is to tell folks that all of us at some point in our lives, or I should say most of us, I imagine there are some perfect folks out there. I am not one of them, and I don't think most of us are. But the reason I wanted to include myself is to say all of us have some sort of a ism, right? And that we have to overcome. And I overcame, and I think I've overcome all of mine. But if I find any, or you find any in me, you let me know, and I'll work on overcoming that. But what I try to tell folks, there's this stuff in the liberal intelligentsia right now that says, hey, let's not worry about all those crazies that voted for Trump. And by the way, I have relatives that would qualify as some of those crazies, and I don't consider them crazy. I'm disappointed in them, but I don't consider them crazy. What we have to do is try to understand the pathology and work within that frame. Because for all the isms that we were afflicted by ourselves, there is some pathology in there as well that made us fall out of line with what we think should be right. So I think it is essential. I think it is essential for us to be, and if you can't do it, it's understood, right? There are some people who tell me, Egberto, I just can't do it. I just can't engage folks that are so far away from my morality, from what I believe, and all these things. And to those I say, I understand. I genuinely understand. But by the same token, there's one thing we still need out of you. And that is, we need you to not demean or turn off or think there are negative ulterior motives for those of us who say, you know what? We are going to spend that effort to engage. Because I think there's a whole lot of engagement would have occurred or would occur if folks weren't scared about what are these other people going to think about me doing this sort of a thing. Anyhow, let me go ahead and go to the wall now, to the page. Let's see. Daniel Ledo, how much do I need to contribute in order to obtain some content control? I am not sure I understand your question, Mr. Ledo. Maybe you can elaborate on that, and I'll be more than happy to tell you that. Now, Jeff Walton, not a hero, but a true scary to think that the highest elected position in the country needs to be babysat. Brother, let me just tell you, the highest elected official in this country does need to be babysat. So that is a statement of fact. And I think All the books that are coming out right now have just about proven that. So let's not be concerned about whether that is a fact or not. Yes, it is a fact. All right, Kathleen Morgan, welcome aboard, Kathleen. You're tuning in from Massachusetts. I love Massachusetts. I love what you guys are doing politically in Massachusetts. You guys are giving us new blood. You guys are riveting both in New York and Massachusetts. I can't wait to see if the governor Cynthia Nixon makes it. I am so hoping. I interviewed her at Netroots. I'm so hoping that Cynthia does it. You know, people are going to say, Berto, but you're always talking about competence or whatever. And I said, you know what? I spoke to Cynthia Nixon at Netroots. And politically speaking, the woman is competent. Yes, she was an actor. But politically speaking, she's very competent and she knows the material. And I'm pretty sure if elected, she's going to have a whole lot of tacticians working around her. I have no doubt about that. Okay, let's see. Michael Cisak. I encourage everyone to check out the Walk Away from Democrats campaign because people realize that many crazy leftists are taking over. Would you like my dear brother Michael Cisak? You know I love you, but please tell me, who are the crazy leftists that you're talking about? I am very much in concern and wonderment. Who would that be? When I look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she speaks, I'd like to know what does she say that is anathema to the United States, that is anathema to what or the preamble to our Constitution says. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more present union and look out for the welfare of it. Oh, is that what it really said? And how does that differ to all the things that many of us lefties want? And thank you, Kathleen. I asked you the same question. Who do you consider a crazy leftist? Let's see. Anyone who is a leftist and thinks socialist policies work. Well, unless you are going to decide to never collect your Social Security, then I guess you do also accept, believe, and know that socialist policies do work. In fact, they do. And by definition, in many domains, socialist policies are more effective. In other domains, capitalist policies have benefits. And look, I am a democratic socialist, okay? I'm also a free enterpriser. I owned several companies. My last company, my software company, has been very successful. Of course, I gave it all up to do this because I tell you what, I have a daughter, and when I'm gone, I want her to have a better world to live in. But yeah, I gave up a software company that was making quite a bit of money, that purchased my home, my cars, and everything else, and put my daughter through college. And 6 years after she got out of college, said, okay, it's time for me to put my money where my mouth was, and I depleted my retirement by doing this stuff for 6+ years. But anyhow, folks, let me tell you something. All right, look, this is very important. We have to engage. We have to engage, and we can't be discouraged by my good friend Michael Cisak when he tries to create false equivalencies. We can't do that. We have to be able to. And in fact, I think Michael Cisak and Daniel Lado, who are always on this program, are a positive to this program. Why? Because they teach me all the other things I have to address. Because I tell you what, the kind of information that these folks are getting and putting out there and that they believe, it's amazing. Sometimes I have to go look it up. Sometimes I have to go see, did Mike really say that? Does Mike really believe that? Is there any truth to what he's saying? Let me go do some research on that. And of course, most of the times it is propaganda put out by the Heritage Foundation or the Cato Institute or one of the institutions that had their genesis from the Powell Manifesto. And someday Mike Cisak and Daniel Lado will understand what the Powell Manifesto is, understand how it was designed, what it was designed to do, and we'll get a change. But until then, it's not completely important, because for me, it is always looking forward. It is always going forward. It is always doing what's best for the American people, what's best for our middle class or poor. That is a fight. That is why I get up every day, do my exercise, and head to Starbucks to study, to write, and to prepare for this show. Do that every day, 5 days a week. And on Saturdays, it's more research. On Sundays, it's more research. Yeah, I know I could be boring sometimes. Every now and then I go for a blast, like we're in Colorado with some good friends last month, and I did some whitewater rafting and all of that. But of course, when everybody was sleeping at 1 a.m, I was doing what? Studying and blogging. But hey, that's the life that I chose. But look, folks, let me tell you something. Oh, it's time for my plug. I forgot about that. I've been forgetting about that quite often, folks. And the thing about it is I need you guys to subscribe. Anyhow, folks, please give us a call. Please go ahead and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That's patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. If you believe in what we're doing, if you believe that we need to get the progressive message out, if you believe that the media isn't doing the job it is supposed to do, and we know it is not, the only way we can mitigate that is if those of us who have the wherewithal, those of us who can invest in it, please go to Patreon, patreon.com/politics done right, and please become a subscriber. There are pennies. Buy Politics Done Right a coffee, because I guarantee you it is worth it. It is worth it. Give us a coffee. Make sure that we can support all that we're doing here. October, I have a trip that I'm supposed to be making to Washington, D.C., a progressive organization that's trying to bring people together for this election, and we're going to also need some funding for that. So, folks, please go ahead and go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right, and let's go ahead and get this thing done. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and make sure that the progressive space is funded. One of the things is that the right is always funded. They never have problems. For those of you who have heard before, forgive me, but I want to tell a quick story. As you know, Politics Done Right is also on KPFT 90.1 FM on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Every other day of the week, it is here, in my studio. Now, here's the interesting thing. I had not myself, Dr. Theis, a friend of mine who runs the Center for Civic Engagement at Lone Star College, wanted to get some people together. So we got 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans together. We had a great time, and we came to some common ground, and we were able to come across issues that we could agree on, which shows this stuff can work, right? Nobody's giving up their values. They're saying, how can we work together and get certain things done? So we did that. And I invited one of the Republicans to my show. And she and her husband came. And we were in Fund Drive when I invited her. But one of the reasons I invited her, because I wanted to tell her story, right? She came to that meeting sort of a little bit upset, not upset, but kind of depressed. And she's like, she's been raising money for the Republican cause all morning here in the Kingwood area. And she said she didn't have a good day. So I'm just kind of curious. You didn't have a good day? What, you only made $100 or so? So, oh no, the problem is I only made $5,000 today. I was like, what? Oh my God. What you mean? Cold calling for, supporting the Republican candidates. I'm like, that's the kind of monies that you guys go through? And she said, yeah. But then she came to my show now, and we were having a hard time raising some funds for on the show. You know, KPFT, it's always like pulling teeth at KPFT when all these different shows are trying to raise money. I usually do pretty well because I have some great listeners. But anyhow, that day started out slow, and she came out and she said, I am pledging $100 to Politics Done Right, to Egbert. She never says my name right. To Egberta's show. If this conservative Republican woman can support a show, because I believe in free speech and I believe in civility, all that good stuff, because, we try to work together. And she did it, and, she started an avalanche of the calls coming in. But you know what? We never, ever ask for those kinds of dollars, because in my opinion, it's less about dollars to get these things to work and more about how much activism and studying and educating you want to do. And that's why if you go ahead and go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right, we ask you for small stipends, a coffee, the value of a venti coffee, or maybe a candy. Because what we want to do is we want to build a huge base of listeners, a huge base of supporters that are going to invest in Politics Done Right and the other programs that we have forthcoming, and be a part of the family and do things. Later on, we're going to have, I'm thinking about a whole lot of other value-added things to provide you. Of course, you get the bumper sticker. Depending on pricing, you get the book, both either electronically or paperback. You also have, what I'm going to start having is a Zoom chat. For people at a certain level, what we're going to have is we're going to have a Zoom chat where maybe once or twice or maybe 3 times a month, we have a day where we can all see each other in a chat room. There's this product called Zoom that I've been playing with Coffee Party USA, where we'll sit down and have conferences and discuss issues that people want to discuss in person or in video conferencing. And then that would become a part of maybe helping decide what topics would be forthcoming on future shows. So I'm trying to build a great network here of not only people, but we're going to have some other programs that we have getting ready to line up as well. So folks, please go ahead and go to Patreon, patreon.com/politics done right, and know that unless you support progressive media, all we're going to have is the fallacies we have from the right, and that does permeate the minds of people, and that's why we get the politicians that we get, because they are getting these things based on the information that they have. And if we don't have throughput, if you don't share our stuff, if you don't put our stuff out, it's not going to happen. Anyhow, folks, telephone number again, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Let me see if I have any more questions here on the call to go through. Let's see. Okay, I don't have any more. So we're coming close to the end of the show. So again, I want to ask you guys to remember to support Progressive Radio. Go to patreon.com/politics done right. Again, that is Patreon, patreon.com/politics done right. Today's Friday. We will be back on Monday with a new subject. If you have subjects that you think is a must for us to cover, you know how to reach us, info@politicsdoneright.com, or drop us a line at the website, facebook.com/politicsdoneright. Just go ahead and leave us a direct message, and we respond to absolutely everything. Because you know what, folks? This is your show. And when I say that, I mean that. This is your show. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I close this baby. I am out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.